This is the Umbrella Academy podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we are discussing the penultimate episode of the Umbrella Academy Season 2, Episode 9, 743.
Okay, all I know is we've got 1-5 too many, and you're the one acting like a maniac.
Maniac? Luther, you have seen nothing. If you want a maniac, I will show you maniac.
Okay, as your spotter, I think the best thing I can do for you right now is put you out of your misery.
Okay, Luther, listen. I know your feeble mind only responds to age and authority, so listen very closely. Yet again, you are experiencing daddy issues. This time with your own brother, which honestly is making you a bit crazy. But remember this, I'm 14 days older than him. I have seniority here, so it is me you should be listening to, Luther. I'm the daddy here!
Welcome back, fellow Academy alumni and fellow Brolly Dollies. This is TV Podcast Industries. This is the Umbrella Academy podcast for Season 2, and this is Episode 9, 743. Yes, I'm the daddy here, one of your hosts, or maybe I am just sexy trash as well. Who knows? Only you can decide this, fellow Brolly Dollies. But yes, I'm one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
And I'm Chris. Does that make me the mum or the child of this? I'm definitely not the daddy.
Robot mom.
Okay, robot mom. Yeah. Oh wait, no. Give me Pogo. I'm Pogo.
Okay, yeah, you can. Be
Yeah,
Pogo.
I can be Pogo.
I guess that makes me robot mom.
You watch yourself into that one.
I will now edit this podcast really quickly. As you plug in.
There you go. That's why I'm so good at editing.
Excellent.
Please
Good
don't
stuff.
give me anything else to edit out.
Yeah, welcome back, fellow Brolly Dollies, or Academy alumni, if you will.
Yeah.
We are here, and it's been great having you for our coverage of the Umbrella Academy. Mm-hmm. Remember, even at this late stage, of course, you can head on over to any academical or non-academical podcast catcher of your choice. Subscribe, rate us, leave a review. Any support for TV Podcast Industries is very, very much appreciated. And of course, if there is a spare dollar hanging around, or dare I say it, spare doula, then of course you can head on over to our Patreon site at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Any support is really, really appreciated.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if you can't support us over on Patreon, of course, the best way to support us, other than that, is to share our podcast. You can share it anywhere that you listen to podcasts or anywhere that you have friends on your socials.
Yes, sharing the love is most definitely sharing the podcast. But I think with that public service announcement, we should get into episode 9, 743, which does sound like a flight, doesn't it? One of those things from distant memory that I can no longer remember. The cramped space, the stale air, and the lack of elbow room.
Yeah. But always the possibility you could end off stranded on a desert island for 7 or 8 years.
And is it hell, heaven, or purgatory?
None of the above.
Wilson.
And Chris has a different show. Chris has a movie in his head. Chris has Castaway. We have lost. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. Whatever desert island of your dreams, we're glad you have decided to listen to TV Podcast Industries. On with episode 9. 743. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Much like the Umbrella Academy themselves, everybody's ganging up together towards the end of the show. The episode directed by Amanda Marsalis, who did episode 8, and the teleplay for this one was done by Bronwyn Garrity, who did episode 6, and Robert Askins, who wrote episode 5. So all the writers coming together to team up on this penultimate episode of the show. It
is a smorgasbord of writers' room and creatives getting involved in this. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
I would love to know who decided the flatulence aspect out of the writer.
I know.
They deserve a raise.
Yeah, absolutely. Fart jokes are awesome.
They're always funny.
The 4-year-old child in me doesn't hesitate to come back out after the old flatulence or excessive wind in the bowels, shall we say, comes out.
Absolutely. Well, the joke did begin in episode 8, so it could possibly be Mark Guffman or Jesse McGowan who came up with that in episode 8, maybe. And it continued into episode 9. So, I'd love to know. It was definitely right. They must have just thought it was hilarious in the writer's room, as you would, really. So,
well, let's just say, after the chili at the weekend, I was at stage 4 for quite some time.
Can I spoil a little bit? Not going to give away your pub quiz question for this week, John, but can I just say, dear listeners, fellow Academy alumni, John's question originally for this episode was going to be how many farts were in this episode, to make you watch the episode and just count the number of farts. He thought that would be hilarious, but I have talked him off the ledge.
He talked me out of it, but maybe that could be a bonus question.
It could be, but I know that you haven't gone through the episode yourself to count how many there are, so...
no, I would have to do that myself.
So it would be down to me to count them, yeah.
No, I am more than willing to rewatch this episode of The Umbrella Academy.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. As the fives plot against each other, one of the siblings makes a big sacrifice to save Vanya, and Lila learns the truth about her parents.
I said your synopsis. I actually mean thanks, Netflix, for writing the synopsis for the entire season. It's allowed us to do these really quickly, which is good.
No, exactly. That is perfect for this quick fire show for ourselves. But let's get on to our big moments for episode 9. Chris, take it away.
Well, thank you. I want to discuss the sacrifice that we just called out in the summary.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Ben. Like, I literally, I was an emotional wreck after this. I shed a tear.
Okay.
Okay, that's really good.
I was wondering.
That's where I was like, I literally shed a tear.
Yeah.
No, it's just because we had the in our show notes for our listeners, I had the emoji with the one single tear coming out the eye.
Okay.
Like, yep, that was it.
I was concerned that stage 4 had gone critical with that one.
No, it was just such an amazing piece of writing. The way that they had this character do the ultimate sacrifice to save the sibling. So running it back down, we've seen in the previous episode, Ben kind of finally gets to show his family or parts of his family that he did travel back in time through possessing Klaus. He got to spend time with his love interest and like additionally share a touching moment with Diego, share a moment with Luther and Five, and then being here when Klaus and Diego and Allison are there trying to save Vanya. Where they all fail, he is able to persevere. And they could have just let it at that. They showed the electric kind of spark touching her hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's where you could have left it. You could have done that. He just saved the day. They took it that step further where he enters her, and I'm going to pull from Sherlock here, her mind palace, which is the academy. Yeah. And you get such a touching moment between the two of them that's charged with I don't know how to describe it. It was just this emotion of being able to save your sister, say the right thing, while at the same time showing his character growth in the years since he's passed. That she suddenly remembers everything, and he's able to give her that the acceptance of it's not just you. We've all been through this. Yeah. And then passing over, and he's done what he remained on Earth to do. That kind of whole thing that ghosts stay around to complete a task. He expended his final amount of energy while he was staying around to save his sister. Yeah. And then tell her he's okay with that.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't mind passing. Now, he said something to her. Mm-hmm. He left a message, which I think will play out in the next episode, hopefully. And I'm really hoping it does, because it's such a good, it's like that message in a bottle. It may not play out in this episode, it may play out further.
Yeah.
But just, so, yeah, I was shocked, kind of. I sat there going, of all the characters for this to happen to, Ben was not who I was expecting it to be.
Right. No, I think I absolutely loved this scene. I really enjoyed having this kind of moment. We talked about it before with his discussion with Diego, that there's a feeling that Ben was kind of the glue that was holding the family together. We still don't know how he died. We still don't know why he died, when he died. So it feels like that moment when he did die is what broke the family apart, is kind of what the feeling we've always had since season one. But the fact that they've held that back and held that hidden from us as the audience. But seeing these interactions that they've done so well in this season with himself and Diego, and with himself and Klaus at times, they've had this really strong relationship, even though they probably hate each other because they've spent whatever it is now, 17 years together or 20 years together, whatever it is, however many years it's supposed to be. But they do have a hate-hate relationship, but there's definitely love underneath it all. And now seeing a moment here with him and Vanya where he's able to talk her off the ledge and say, you're not this way because of you. You're this way because our father treated you like a bomb from the minute he realized what you were. He didn't treat you like that you were going to become something bad. He treated you like you already were something bad. So I thought that was a beautiful way to deal with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was some really nice moments here. Like you were saying about the bomb, and he says, Dad couldn't handle your anger. That doesn't mean that you can't. Exactly. And it just linking into that, the fact that you had Allison, Klaus, Diego, all trying to reach Vanya to kind of have pull her from this ledge that she was metaphorically on, that it was Ben who, all of Vanya's sound waves not affecting him at all, but you kind of felt that his time dead, there was that empathy that he had with Vanya, even saying all these years with Klaus, it's all been gravy. He's kind of enjoyed it in the end. Yes, Klaus is annoying, but he's lovably annoying. And I really, tears kind of, moist eyes started when he says, "Can you hug me as I go?" It's been a long time, and I thought, all this being done in, as you say, that sort of mind architecture of Vanya was really, really nice. I thought I loved the symbol of the white violin on the table. And then as you went into inside the violin, you saw Vanya there. So this was just really just so good. I loved this this part of it, and it was great seeing Ben with this sacrifice, being that true hero. Initially I was thinking, who is the unlikely hero here? I was thinking it was going to be Klaus, because Allison and Diego had failed.
And he's the most unlikely of heroes.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, not even he can sort of make his way to Vanya.
Absolutely. In fairness, I have to say, I think he's the one that gets the furthest of the three.
Definitely.
Allison gets knocked back first very quickly, and then Diego has no way of fighting the power to get to the end, but weirdly, Klaus gets all the way to the door before he comes over. Now, I think that's partly helped by Diego releases a fire hose, which allows him to climb some of the way or most of the way there, but he's still able to do it, in fairness. I love that, what he calls himself, he's just sexy trash. He's not a hero, as is his description of himself at the beginning, but I think he does a pretty good job to get as far as he does.
Yeah. And also he says, people have expectations. People do not expect him to be the unlikely hero. And he says, Vanya has expectations of me that she doesn't expect him to probably save her. He's kind of fairly downbeat on himself, but, everyone likes a trier.
Exactly.
you know?
And just a call out for any of our listeners who are kind of unsure about the white violin. In the comic books, the white violin is Vanya.
That's right.
That is kind of her superhero name, and even to a point where she is in one of the first book and the very first storyline, she is transformed into a white violin.
Yeah.
So that was a reference to that, but also season 1 where she was playing a white violin at the end.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of her supervillain. Supervillain name, really. And everybody has a code name in the comics, but Vanya never had one because she never had a superpower, according to the original storyline, until that end when she becomes the villain. Yeah. I'm so glad they did it this way, in the TV show. Once again, I said at the end of season 1, I'm so glad that they just made it a white suit from the black suit rather than what happens during the comics, because it's pretty impossible to bring to life, let's say.
But, so 2 follow-up questions. So, first things first. Have we said goodbye to Ben forever? That is a question I have.
I think it's a great goodbye to the character. I think his story has been left so open, with no details of his past, that I think you could probably do a bunch of flashbacks and continue to have Ben in the show as they kind of explore his past.
Exactly.
But I can't see how this Ben would ever appear again. I don't think. Well, there is a way. Klaus is possibly a conduit to the afterlife, and Ben's superpower is that he is a portal to the dimension beyond this world. So absolutely there are ways you could write this Ben coming back from the afterlife. There's absolutely ways. I just think it's a lovely goodbye to him at this point that I can't imagine we'll have him just coming back in next episode or something.
Yeah, no, it is a really nice goodbye. But I mean, also just the fact you have the time travel nature of this, okay? Not as such being able to link the physics and timeline of the current Academy's time travels, I suppose, then just simply with the time travel, like in effect he is dying here, yet he hasn't been born yet. So does that mean it rules out him being born? So I mean, if they do go back to some point, will he be there? Because he has to, the timeline, he has to still be able to come back to get to that point to do it, you know, to have that moment with Vanya. So I think just with the time travel element, we could see him back here, alive even. So
maybe,
time, that's my thing. Timey-wimey is very fluid and crazy.
Yeah.
I think I would not like to see them negate this. I think this was, I don't want them to negate this death and this scene. But I would like to see this character back, be it through flashbacks or through Klaus channeling him slightly for temporarily, or it being that they talk to Reginald, to Reggie, and kind of say, in season 3, it's preventing the death of Ben.
Maybe.
So, like, figuring out what happened and then them working to stop that death.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he made the ultimate sacrifice, now they want to make a sacrifice for him.
Yeah.
I think that's a good opportunity. I love this actor. I love the character.
Yeah.
And specifically, this sacrifice, for me, it's very similar to Black Widow's sacrifice in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see that negated because it was such a touching, heartfelt, pinnacle moment that if you just negate it by bringing them back, click non-click, then it kind of negates a lot of what happened previously. So anyway, finally, second question.
Mm-hmm.
We are treated to a repercussion of Vanya's power and her connection. So previously we've seen her, basically the best way is a repercussion of her actions. And the first repercussion is Ben's death. The second is from her saving Harlan. He now seems linked to her psychically, maybe sharing parts of her power.
Yeah.
When she goes, he goes, and we're treated at the end of this episode to the barn where he is in now, humming with power while she is turned down, he is not. So it's very interesting. What do you guys think?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, that's obviously the setup for the finale. You know, this is definitely a moment within this episode where you kind of go, I think we might have said this maybe offline. I don't think we actually talked about it in our last episode, Chris, but there is a point in this episode where you're going, these characters think it's all over, but we as the audience know we have an episode and a half left, so this can't possibly be over. So kind of like what happened in season 1 when Vanya becomes the white violin and the final episodes are about her being the villain of the show, which we didn't know up until that point. This is kind of, there's somebody out there connected to Vanya who is the actual villain of the show, which is Harlan, possibly. Maybe, again, we don't know because we haven't seen the last episode, but obviously there's all the stuff with the Handler and the Commission and all that kind of thing. But right now we have someone with the same powers as Vanya out there who has zero control over it, has hardly any connection to anybody else that is able to get him into control, and he's out there all alone. He's not out there sitting right beside the rest of the Umbrella Academy who've dealt with something like this before. But yeah, so will it explode and level the farm?
Well,
will there be something bigger that will happen?
I think that's it, isn't it? Because, I mean, with what Ben does, effectively, the apocalypse, the nuclear apocalypse of that was seen by Diego in the infinite operator room, then, or switchboard, I should say. That in a sense has gone. Yeah. Kennedy is assassinated here in this episode. So in terms of preserving the timeline, there was no explosion from the building. As Kennedy is assassinated, yet you have this, what is it described by the Commission, where you've got this anomaly that is off the charts. So have they kind of prevented one apocalypse to start another one? Because Harlan, maybe without having the ability to speak, cannot control this at all. He is unable to do that unless Vanya can help with that. But that's what it seems to me, is that with what happens in the fact that he uses his powers to save Sissy and ultimately kill Carl with the bullet from the shotgun, that he can't any longer control it. And so you have this, this great image of the barn at the farm, just sort of with this blue glow coming from it, kind of shaking and looking like it's, kind of Kansas in tornado season, that something's going to happen, and it fly off the side of the hill. And so I just don't know. I mean, that's the really interesting thing here, is have they averted the one that Diego's aware of, only to have caused another? Again, this kind of forever infinite apocalypse generator.
That's the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun thing. It's basically every time they stop an apocalypse, they inadvertently kind of, there's another apocalypse they need to stop, and it's consistently just going to keep happening. So I like the idea that Harlan maybe is season 3. He is the apocalypse from season 3. Maybe. Because yes, this is a child with special needs who potentially, we're not giving an exact definition whether it's autism or XYZ, but we do know he has trouble kind of with his emotions, and that is a direct link to what Vanya had. Like, her anger was the cause of her, her emotions were the cause. Because she can't control her emotions. So we have essentially Vanya 2.0.
Yeah, maybe.
To a degree. Yeah. Maybe. Like, it's going to be interesting to see whether it's a season 3 or if it's all wrapped up in the next episode. And to replace Ben, we get a new member of the Academy.
Yeah, possibly.
Harlan.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think that's going to, like, essentially, you need the lucky number 7. You've got a new member. Let's wait and see.
Really like that idea, Chris. Yeah, it's entirely possible that they could bring in Harlan, if they do bring him to the future and set back up the Academy, I suppose, as one of the ideas that we heard earlier, that Sissy and Harlan could join the Academy and come into the future, definitely. One last thing on the death of Ben, just because I really liked how it was put together. It felt like he was in the center of a nuclear explosion, just probably because we watched Chernobyl last year. I had that kind of idea of someone dying inside the center of a exploded nuclear reactor, effectively. So that's what it kind of felt like when you had Ben going, I've held on as long as I possibly could, and you see parts of his, well, I was going to say flesh, but parts of his projected self, possibly his ghost self, started to fall away before he asks for that hug from Vanya. I just love the way it really felt like I am right at the center of this storm of power that is Vanya, calming her down and saving everyone, kind of thing. It really did feel like such a big moment, but I thought it was really well filmed. Just wanted to call that
beautiful.
Out. But,
yeah, no, the FX on that, just like watching his, and I didn't know how they did it initially, because it was just the way he kind of, as you said, kind of flaked away. It was their MCU dusting moment,
basically,
and it was, for me, it was very reminiscent of Peter Parker, Tom Holland scene in Infinity War, because it was that I'm not feeling well, Mr. Stark, and just slowly turning and crumbling away in Tony Stark's hands. Whereas here you had Ben crumbling away in Vanya's, and it was the same, where you're left with this Vanya just holding her arms out, holding air. It was just great.
Really good.
Fantastic effects.
Really good. Before we all bawl, crying in tears, do you want to go on to our next big point? John, do you want to take
I think we should.
Yeah.
Yes, it is 743, which is file 743.
Were you all doing the same thing I was doing the whole episode, looking for what door number it was, or what?
Well, exactly.
Was there a license plate, or was it something?
But this, it contains very sensitive information about Lila and the handler's relationship, and also how it came to be, more importantly, through the murder of Lila's parents. And I, this is bound to have more repercussions down the line than it maybe did in this episode. I think, first off, though, I do like how this file was brought to the attention of Herb as he's in the handler's office by AJ Carmichael, using the aquarium gravel to spell out, or to write out, I should say, 743 in lighter coloured gravel bits, as he's communicating through aquarium gravel, as a clever fishy would do. So
is that when they first found out, like the first time they ever found out that this was a sentient, well, of course it's a sentient being as a goldfish, but that it was a really intelligent goldfish that he was spelling out words in his aquarium.
Exactly. Now, unfortunately, this course of action from AJ ends up with him not surviving this episode. No. So whilst maybe not on the same emotional level as Ben, we also do have a goodbye to the goldfish as well in AJ Carmichael, who is devoured, a bit like fish in A Fish Called Wanda.
Yep.
Devoured raw and wriggly, sushi, if you will. Sushi-esque, if you will, I suppose, like was done to the Fish Called Wanda. So I kind of, I like the fact that there was this fun way of the fish spelling it out in the aquarium gravel. But Herb does get the file and manages to get it to Lila after she has been questioning him, because at this point Diego has escaped back to 1963. So she is searching the commission high and low and begins to question Herb, which she calls the sweaty gerbil man, which I thought was quite good as well. And, there is that really nice moment on the staircase where he gives her the file, and, you see the surprise and shock on her face. But I love that it just kind of then cuts away, and you have it later, that moment, which you're thinking is going to be the showdown, as she knows the truth between her and the handler. And in fact, despite preparing to dispatch her own foster child, the handler is lucky enough that it is approved by AJ Carmichael's stamp, and that it does say that number 5, as we were talking previously, that he is the one that dispatched her parents. But from the flashback that is there, what we do realize is that it is the handler that uses Carmichael's stamp to approve the mission. And also from the flashback, if it's true, then she was also present. So, but luckily she is not mentioned in the file, I presume. So Lila still has sort of no truth, maybe to what extent her mother's involvement is in the death of her biological parents. So, I just thought this was a really nice thing because we were kind of, we'd seen that flashback.
Yeah.
Obviously, number 5 as well was hidden. I mean, it was fairly obvious, but there's nice, I suppose, nice confirmation here.
Absolutely. Chris, you definitely called it out on the podcast.
Yeah! I called this one. I'm so happy with it. As soon as I saw that, I was just like, yes! Crazy theories 1, everything else 0.
It wasn't that crazy a theory, but yes, theories 1.
Yes.
I'll say.
Theories. Okay, I don't get to say this often, but yay, 1.
You get 1 per season.
I really enjoyed this. I do think it will come out though in the next episode.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's the thing. They confront 5. 5 was there, and then I think they'll go after the handler together.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, I agree on that one. I think there's possibly a 2-pronged attack on the handler as well, because from the last episode where the elder Swede does realize that he has been getting inauthentic transmission from the commission, and it smells of lavender. Yeah. So he does know that was used to crack his pert white Swedish buttocks in the sauna by the handler.
Yes.
Possibly.
No, I thought, okay.
But and she was using it as well as grabbing hold of the wiener.
Yes, of his brother. Yes.
That was his brother.
Yes, it was.
But lavender was involved in that sauna as well. Yeah.
Well, she used lavender.
Exactly.
That was the thing. Her body wash or whatever it was. Anyway, she smelled of lavenders, and that will be her downfall. I loved every aspect of the kind of whole file 743. Did not know where they were going with it. I thought it was going to be like some great, big, huge secret. Like, it's like Protocol 743 type thing.
Exactly.
What to do in a coup d'etat, kind of thing. I did not know it was going to be that. I was hoping maybe it would be like you get the future Umbrella Academy members, or it was like Protocol 743, go get Reginald Hargreave from his frozen, cryo, wherever he is, it like pluck him out and tell him all things like that. It was just interesting. But very happy with what we got with this. But I do want sushi.
But I suppose why it works out so well here is that 743, this idea of the file, giving the information to Lila, was hidden in plain sight from the beginning of the series, from her introduction and from her origin story, as we talked about. We knew there was going to be a point that would come back and bite the handler on the ass, basically, as to how she got Lila. We knew that was going to come back somehow in the series, and as you correctly identified, it's also now coming back to bite 5. So he now has Lila on his tail. So
and I did like the fact that the file was contained in that Indiana Jones type warehouse of filing cabinets, which was a nice little touch there.
Yes.
So it was, because you're kind of there. The episode 743. Okay. We've not heard that as anything previously in the other 8 episodes. And it's so kind of just there, like, what is it? What is it? What's it going to be? A door room, as you say, Chris, ends up being a file with the truth of Lila, at least in terms of how she got into, to be with the handler.
Exactly. That kind of it for your big points there, John? It
certainly is. Yeah. Derek?
I have 2 options for my final point, because there's 2 massive moments that we haven't talked about yet. But I'm going to choose the fun one. We can talk about the other one in a second anyway. Why not? my choice is 5x5 or 5 versus 5, because I think it's brilliant. I think it's so well done as a part of the episode where we have 5 using his powers versus 5, basically, older 5. And once again, like we talked about in the last episode, having Luther there as his spotter, not knowing what the hell is going on the whole time, just adds to the comedy element of it. You know, we have young 5, teen 5, punching Luther in the nuts so that he can get him out of the way to start this battle. And then as the fight goes on, we get the double nut punch to our double kick, double ball kick, whichever way, to Luther, so that they can continue the fight. I really enjoy how they play this superpower, because we've seen the superpower used for so many things throughout this show. Just nonchalantly walking to the other side of a room to get a cup of coffee. We've seen him jumping back and forth through time to commit assassinations, and now we see him fighting with somebody else across an area. I just thought it was so much fun to watch in the episode. And then what I absolutely loved about it, and this is probably where the deft writing came in, is that they had to tie this back in with our first introduction to 5 back in episode 1 of season 1, without screwing anything up. And the way it was put together was so good. So this battle is effectively going to be resolved with older 5 ending off in the future, turning himself back into younger 5, because he still has got the calculations wrong, right? That's what has to happen in the end. So to taunt him and to try and get him on their side, young 5 is offering up the equation to solve the problem effectively, for this jump into the future. And effectively what happens is he gets kicked through the hole by Luther, thinking he's doing the right thing. Luther gets hit in the head with the fire extinguisher that was thrown through by Klaus in the first episode of season 1, knocking him out of the way. So everything that was predetermined to happen in season 1, episode 1, ends off happening in this episode. There was no stopping it happening. It was a guaranteed moment in time, effectively, as they call those kind of little thing that has to happen. But I loved how deftly written this was, and I can only imagine they must have gone back to the script for that first episode, sat it down side by side, and went, okay, these are all the little touch points that happen. This is the amount of seconds that pass between the hull opening up in the future and the fire extinguisher coming through. So that means we have a couple of lines of dialogue to keep him here in 1963 before he jumps through. You know, I really, really thought that was a really well done scene. And of course, the fight taking place to Dancing with Myself by Generation X. Sung by Billy Idol. I always forget that Billy Idol was in a rock band before he was on his own. But Dancing with Myself was just the perfect underlining song.
It was so good for sure. I think Aidan Gallagher here is just phenomenal. I loved his demeanor, just him going crazier and crazier. You know, the fact that the 2 5s, teen 5 and ye oldie 5 are still plotting against one another, and that walk over the bridge with Luther, and it's all interspersed with a few little farts here and there as we move, just to keep that kind of baseline child humor going. and even with the fight, I just really, really enjoyed his portrayal here. Just that the agitated look of him, the wide eyes, the just pure and utter condescending talk to Luther, coupled with everything else, it was just really, really good. And, you know, just even bringing back in the daddy issues, like, you know, that Luther has, you know, he's so wonderfully, like, kind of awful in a way.
Totally.
But in the best possible way. And I just really loved this portrayal. I think Aidan Gallagher is absolutely stand out for this season.
Yeah, I absolutely love that moment with Luther, where Luther just playing the perfect straight man, where he's going, well, the plan is that we have 1 extra 5, so we're just going to get rid of the extra 5. Aidan Gallagher's, you know, the delivery of the line going, no, that extra 5 is me. You're not getting rid of me, kind of thing, you know. Really, really good interplay between the two of them, definitely. Also, this is where we get our Captain America quote. Knew there was definitely going to be one coming this season, but we have 5 saying to teen 5 saying to older 5, I could do this all day. So They had to be in there at some point, right?
I was expecting it. Earlier, but yeah, we got it there. It was great. I loved this scene. I loved everything about this. I loved everything you guys have said. And for me, it was just one of those standout fight scenes on the level of what we've seen with previous shows we covered, like Daredevil and stuff, like the hallway scene, because it's just so unique. And I mean, it was just kind of as brilliant and like as, what I don't mean it was as, kind of gruesome or kind of brutal as, say, The Punisher, or like such a unique type of shot. It was just, they had such a choice with the powers, and the way that they decided to shoot that makes it so unique. It's that fight that takes place in the seconds between seconds. And I think that echoes back to what his dad says, which is you don't need to jump back huge leaps. Everything happens in the seconds. Jump those small seconds. So just seeing the two of them leaping, it's
I do think it's reasonably unique for the shows that we've covered on this podcast to actually get a superhero battle. We don't really see superpowers versus superpowers very often in the shows that we've covered. That is true. A little bit of
in the movies, maybe.
In the movies, a little bit in The Boys. We saw superpowers versus non-superpowered people quite a lot in that, and most of their heads exploded. But in most of the shows that we see, it's superpowers tend to be very strong people fighting people that aren't as strong as them, or people that have, enhanced abilities like that. But superpower versus superpower seems to be something that is in the CW Arrowverse quite a bit. You see Flash fighting somebody else with speed powers, I suppose. That's kind of similar to this, but I think this is done much higher budget, obviously, with Netflix to do this kind of stuff, and I think they did a great job. And it doesn't outstay its welcome either, and has enough comedy underneath it all to make sure you're laughing as well as enjoying a good fight sequence as well. So yeah. There you go. So that was my big point. But I'm going to not talk any more about that, because there is another massive point. If we had a fourth host, this would definitely be the one that they would choose, because this is a massive point. Kind of initiated by Diego still trying to think that he can change the future and save Kennedy. He doesn't save Kennedy. There's a decoy left there by his father, Reggie, with the I told you so kind of thing. You can't save the future. And we see the aftermath of that, really, which is the big moment from the episode, right? We have Reggie, who we've known is an alien since season 1, revealing himself when he meets the Majestic 12, all of whom are really happy with the outcome of what's happened for Reggie, and effectively wanting to use even more of his tools and gadgets to turn the world towards what they want to happen. Doesn't look like that's going to happen for them.
Well, no, I think what's great about this is he has been kept in the dark by the sounds of it. It sounds like, they have really gotten on the wrong side of Sir Reggie here by assassinating Kennedy. He was assured that wasn't going to happen. And certainly, like, it adds a different dimension to his promise to Grace, actually, in his office from the previous episode. Yes. That, he is actually sincere about that, and he wasn't expecting for this to happen. I think he says you shouldn't have killed JFK. Yeah. And, to the point where this is a matter of principle, and he says, you will never hear from me again, to which case you have the G-Man saying, oh no, we will, because as you say, we want to use your tech, and all of this, and that's great, just the mask coming off, and then the screams, the thuds, you name it, happening on in the background as I presume the Majestic 12 looked very unmajestic by the time Sir Reggie had finished with them.
I presume
the bloody 12, maybe.
I presume they were inside out. But
I think it was more probably the Majestic 36.
Possibly.
Or the Majestic 36 pieces.
Yeah, possibly. What do you guys think about this kind of choice? Personally, love it. Before I will show my hand before I ask you guys a question. What do you think about this kind of choice in shows where they decide not to show something that may not match up to your mind? I suppose they decide to show something in relief, something from the opposite experience, blood covering the screen kind of thing, rather than actually seeing what it is that Reggie looks like underneath the skin. What do you guys think of that choice?
Wait, So, do you specifically the violence or what the
I
alien
think it was
looks
the choice not to show what the alien looked like in the episode. That's what I think the decision was. I think they'd show the violence because, well, maybe not, maybe not. But I think it was they chose not to show the alien. What do you think of that as a choice?
I enjoy it, but I don't think it was a specific choice for now. I think it's that they have time to work on it for next season.
If there is a next season.
I think because essentially at some point he'll reveal himself to the children. Because what we very quickly learn is there's something on the dark side of the moon that he's trying to get to. And that's why he was working with Majestic 12. And I think the choice here is essentially, well, we're in the penultimate episode, we've blown a lot of our budgets, and we will need to either CGI a reptilian lizard man or prosthetic the hell out of it. And sometimes that can be good and done well, it can be done badly. In my head, I was like, oh my god, they're going to do it. And when I saw the back, I was like, oh my god, they're going to do you remember the TV show V?
Mm-hmm.
The 70s version, not the remake?
80s, Chris, the first miniseries was 1985. I remember watching it live on TV with my big brother. That was my first introduction to horror, my first introduction to sci-fi, proper dark sci-fi. Loved it. Yeah.
It was great. I thought they were going to look like that. I thought literally he was almost going to like have that type of look. And I was like, even if they do that, it would fit in with the aesthetic.
And the mask. The mask as well just reminded me of that as well.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think it was a choice they didn't because I think they're going to invest more into it. Because aesthetically, they could have gotten away with it. From like the way the campy nature of it, they could have done it. I think they just want to do it right, and they probably just didn't have time, budget, etc.
Maybe. I think it was just a choice. I love the idea of not actually seeing the violence, just seeing the carnage or hearing the carnage, seeing the blood kind of thing, rather than actually showing it all on screen. I think it just makes
the violence. I actually love the fact that you don't see it. I like it because you don't need to.
Fun little scene.
It was.
Just one point, because you called it there, Chris, that just popped back into my head. I remember thinking this exact thought when I watched the episode. The Dark Side of the Moon, this idea that Reggie's looking for something there, and that Luther was sent up to the moon to sit on the moon for, 4 years on his own, wasn't it? That was the mission on the moon. So was it all a pointless mission that Luther was sent up there, or was there something more to it? Was it just the information that Luther was sending back that was pointless, but he was trying to keep him there in case something escaped from the dark side of the moon, maybe something like that?
I think it was actually the readings. So because there was one of them was I think he says seismic readings for the moon. I'm pretty sure that was one of the...
That Luther said, or?
Luther said in season 1.
Yeah.
But he was talking about the readings they said, or it was written on one of the readings that were sent back when he was at home and he read them. Because I think the seismic, it means that, something's happening on the other side of the moon. That would have set off alarm bells.
But it was just that his father never opened up any of those at all.
But did he need to open them? That's the thing. That's the question mark. Because maybe there was another way that he was getting the information. Because now we're learning he had all these other tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah.
So maybe it was that he was monitoring it himself. I think I think it was more to it. I think that's an interesting piece.
Yeah, it could even have just been he had someone up there ready to act in some way to stop something if he heard about it. You know, it was the failsafe. Luther ultimately was a redundant failsafe, in a sense. Hence why he just made up the excuse.
That's assuming that the thing on the dark side of the moon is a problem.
Yeah. Well, Cybertron is really, you never know with those
Transformers. You gotta worry.
Yeah, if Megatron was in there, be a disaster.
Especially if Michael Bay is there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just found another reason why I love you guys. Not one of us has mentioned Pink Floyd once. Well done, guys. Well done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It just leads, again, so many questions. And the question I have going into episode 10 is, my assumption is this will be that scene is the Firefly spaceships taking off scene from season 1, which is, we're not going to see anything else about that in episode 10. Yep. It will be explored in season 3. Fingers crossed we get season 3.
Please give us a season 3. I can't believe it still hasn't been confirmed. We're recording now on the 4th of August, just to give some kind of indication for our Academy alumni. The day we're recording is the week after the show has come out now at this stage, but there is no confirmation definitely as of today that there is going to be a season 3. It is to come. There's no doubt this show has been number 1 in most countries that it's been released in every day since it was released. So I can only imagine that they will be confirming this show for a 3rd season. Unless something massive happens in episode 10 and everybody gets killed and there's no possible way out of it. I can't imagine there's not going to be season 3.
And we just get Finn. Exactly. Blank screen. We get French theatre.
Just get AJ flopping by saying Finn.
That being said, yes, all that, I just will not expect it until probably early 2022.
Absolutely,
if we're lucky. It's like the timeline between these 2 seasons will be greatly extended.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything else at the moment. We don't know when anything could possibly be going back to film. As we've talked about before, is there a point even in confirming that something's coming back when you don't know when filming's going to start again? So, there's loads of shows that are out there that haven't been renewed for a second or third or 5th season because there's no point in renewing them right now. So, until people know more. Those are we kind of ended off with 4 points there. Anything else we haven't talked about, from the episode? I've got one line that I absolutely loved from the episode that I think needs to be called out, because of how poignantly it was delivered by Klaus, when he stops Diego going to war, effectively going to battle against Vanya and says, I need to tell you something before you go. You look like Antonio Banderas with that long hair. I just thought you should know. It's absolutely great because it feels like a real Klaus moment. He's been waiting for 4 or 5 days to tell his brother that he looks like Antonio Banderas. Love it. Also, a Klaus line, of course, is he does have courage. He did wear a sarong to a frat party and got loads of numbers, which is another great Klaus line from the episode. I could go on. Any other moments that we haven't talked about?
Very quickly for myself, which is a lot of what we've seen in this episode and this season, especially the Reggie bit, is from the comic books. So if you have time, do go out and check out volumes 1 and 2 of the Umbrella Academy, which covers all of season 1 so far and parts of season 2 that we've seen. I don't know what's happening in the last episode, so maybe there's more. The 3rd book, Hotel Babylon, I'm still only halfway through, so nothing I want to call out just yet.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think the only thing I've got is that you see the handler here calling all the operatives back from the field because they're going to war, and which can only mean that it must be against number 5 in some respect, or the academy, all the 6 that are remaining. So yes, that was an interesting little ending as well to this episode. Maybe it's because the timeline with that anomaly being identified that it's so horrendous that it's going to so change the timeline and the integrity of it that they need all their operatives. But certainly she is gathering an army for war.
Yeah. You just get that feeling, don't you, about the commission that they have people all across the timeline trying to massage it back into whatever shape it is that, well, now the handler wants it to happen. And at this stage, this thing that's happening in 1963 is so massive, it's going to blow everything apart if they don't massage it back into whatever shape the handler wants it to be in. So she's called everybody back in for war, I suppose. It's just an interesting final moment for the handler in that timeline and what's happening in that future, or that off timeline, whatever we called it last episode, because I still can't remember.
Well, actually, very last point. Interesting that she's called everyone back for war, but is hiding this anomalous event, which is Harlan. She's hiding that potential apocalypse or hiding Harlan from the other switchboard operators, because she says to the operator, has anyone else seen this? No, I called you first. So interesting to see if that plays out into anything as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on that note, Chris, what did you think of this episode?
So I love this. This is a 4.5 if I'm going to score anything. And the only thing that I am taking down from it is Diego. The character pushed towards the end of going again to try and stop, because it's a character that you love to, they built him so well in this season. They've expanded upon the character. To see him revert in that final moment was just a shame for me.
So what do you mean, Chris? What's the issue?
For me, very quickly, it's he's shown character growth across all other aspects, and him knowing that, okay, yes, it was not JFK staying alive that caused the apocalypse. It was Vanya's explosion. That was the trigger, if we call it that. But him still, based on that, still wanting to mess with the timeline to be the hero. Right. And that forcibly, even though everyone has said don't do it, everyone pushes and go, stay the course, do what we need to do. You can be a hero in other ways. We're Team Zero. That type of thing. Yeah. He reverts in the end. His default is to go and still try and save JFK. And that just, it's like 4 steps forward and like 5 back, because he just has reverted slightly on that. Right. It's to his own detriment, because the decoy's there and the stutters start happening and the tears happen because he's been bested. He's not the hero he wants to be. They've shown growth and they've just pulled a lot of it back, I think.
But I feel that by him looking at the time stream and coming back in time to stop Vanya, that's also him being the hero. I don't think he's ever changed from wanting to be the hero of the Umbrella Academy. And since he's not the one that saved Vanya, he still has another opportunity to still become the hero and go and stop JFK's assassination. And I also think, would you stop the assassination of JFK is as big a question as would you go back in time and kill Hitler? So
with a butter knife?
Maybe with a butter knife. He was also willing to do that. So yeah. I think it is fundamental to time travel stories overall. And one character at least has to have that in their head. I'm going to, if I have any possibility to save JFK, I will do it right here, you know? So I don't know whether I agree with you, but you were talking about your opinion about the episode. So yeah.
I think this neatly puts everything in a bow. I'm super happy with it. All the aspects of how they're wrapping up the season. That just stuck in my craw, if you want to call it that. So overall, loved it. And I'm just dying to see what happens in the final 60 minutes. Johnners, what did you think of this penultimate episode?
I really liked it. I give this top marks for me. 5 sweaty gerbil men out of 5. Yes. I just really liked it. I thought the poignancy of Ben's sacrifice with Vanya, and just the interaction of the 2 5s was really good. You know, we've touched on it, but with file 743, with Lila's story being sort of brought out here, at least most of it, I suppose, at this stage, with what's happened to Harlan and Sissy, with the death of Carl, that anomaly now coming from their barn. Like, it was all, you know, there's loads going on, really good stuff going on, fights, poignancy, and they've left a load of intrigue for this final episode 10, where you just know there's going to be retribution, vengeance, and most of it will be centered on 5, and if not, the wider remaining members of the Academy. So I think this is really just such a really good penultimate episode. So yeah, 5 sweaty gerbil men out of 5.
Excellent.
Derek, speaking of sweaty, what did you think of this episode?
Well, it is quite warm.
It is warm in here.
It's
absolutely.
Summertime.
We're all sweaty gerbil men here.
You know, all I'm going to say is this is definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. I think the writing by this team for this episode specifically is just working so hard to get all of the stuff from all of this season and everything from last season all together to give us a great penultimate episode and giving us a moment that we all are dying to see this final episode. We've commented before a couple of times about the penultimate episode not setting up enough in the last episode and not giving us enough story to tie up, it seems pretty perfect. I think we've got a good hour ahead of us, with enough that can be wrapped up in that last hour, and enough intrigue and enough interesting characters, enough motivation from all the characters. So this is kind of perfect as a penultimate episode so far. Of course, we haven't seen the final episode, so it could all change after the next one, but I did a great job, even within it, just keeping the humor going, keeping the action going, and keeping the characters having fun together like they have been all season. I think it's been really, really good. So yeah, 5 out of 5 for me too.
Yeah.
One final thing to do for this episode, John. Let's go off to our pub. Can we just go to the Irish pub this time?
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just across the road.
Yeah.
We need a good old
Knees up,
for sure. So then, fellow Brolly Dollies and alumni of the Academy, yes, welcome to the Umbrella Academy Pop Pub Quiz. The question for episode 9 is, what building is Vanya being held in Dallas? Just to repeat that, what building is Vanya being held in Dallas? Answers on the metaphorical postcard, which is our Facebook group. So you can head on over to our group over at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. In the spoiler post, you can comment to Derek's spoiler post within a spoiler post. So this is getting kind of very meta indeed, where you can answer there, or you can answer to our email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Send it in for this episode, or you can send them all in together to be sure of being in the run for the Umbrella Academy goodies that we have on offer.
Was that to be sure in there because we're in the Irish bar, John?
Yes.
Okay.
To be sure.
We need soft fiddles being played, and the light tap dance from the Irish dancers.
I did complain about that last episode. I'm not going to say it again.
Or maybe a few glasses being thrown and a good old punch up.
Again, also complained about that too. Not going to talk about that again. Just to mention, yes, on the Facebook group, just because somebody's already got the answer right doesn't mean you can't put the correct answer in there as well in the Facebook group. I have no problem with multiple people giving the same answer. We want as many people as possible in for the chance to win Umbrella Academy goodies. So pop on into the spoiler posts, leave your answer there. If you have the same answer as the person above you, that's a good thing. It means everybody's on the same wavelength. And you'll go into our drawing at the end of the season for the goodie pack. Because it's not the first. It's not who gets all the answers right first. It's who gets the most correct answers. And if there's more than one person, as we usually do, we pop them into a hat and somebody will win.
Yes, courtesy of PricewaterhouseCoopers auditing and
You're not
oversight.
allowed to say that, John. We've told you before.
Oh yeah, we're not.
We're not allowed to say that. If there's no oversight. No oversight committee.
No, it is Tombola-esque with names in a hat.
Exactly. Just a hat, basically. We don't have a tombola. That's really expensive. But yes, we will be doing the drawing or just awarding the goodies to the Umbrella Academy pub quiz winner in our final episode, the episode after our finale discussion. We'll be talking about any kind of feedback we've had throughout the season since we did our last feedback episode and awarding the goodies to the Umbrella Academy pub quiz winner. There you go.
There you go.
And breathe.
2 weeks, I think.
And maybe we can do it like Bullseye and we can do a pub darts competition.
No, too complex.
And I can do in one.
It's too complex.
And you get like a speedboat or something.
No, way too complex.
But, gentlemen, that is the end. We have reached the end of our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, Academy alumni, I suppose, Brolly Dolly, since we've done 9 episodes of it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Chris.
We hope you stay subscribed to our podcast. And if you enjoy what you hear, why not share it with your friends? Because sharing the podcast is sharing the love. If you really enjoy what you listen to and what you hear, why not pop on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries and drop us $1. And sure, just give us a bit of a tip because that helps keep the lights on. Of course, you can always stay subscribed so you never miss an episode by subscribing at tvpodcastindustry.com. And that is all good or evil podcast catchers. We do have the finale coming up, the feedback episodes coming up, and later in September, of course, we will be covering Boys Season 2, which looks special.
It really, really does. But thank you so much, fellow Academy alumni, for joining us, and indeed, Brollies. We will be back next time with our discussion about Umbrella Academy, the final episode in Season 2, Episode 10, The End of Something.
Ooh, or you know what they say, at the end of something is always a new beginning.
Exactly.
Maybe. It's the end of something.
Maybe. It's the end of something.
Next episode, on the finale, it's the end of Season 2. That's all we have.
Or it's the end of Derek's patience with all of our jokes.
Maybe, but probably not. Probably not. I'm used to you guys after 509 episodes now, or 512 episodes now. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and like Herb, keep sweating. Bye.
I already am.
And Derek.
Bye.
Bye.